My child, stop scrolling for just a moment. Do not let this message pass you by, because something has quietly been unfolding beyond what your eyes have been able to see. What you are about to hear did not arrive here by accident. If these words have found you today, then allow your heart to become still for a little while. Stay until the end. There is something waiting to be revealed, and every sentence will uncover another piece of a story that has remained hidden until this very moment. There are seasons when heaven remains silent, not because nothing is happening, but because certain truths must mature before they can be understood. This is one of those moments. Behind the ordinary rhythm of your days, behind conversations you never heard and emotions you never witnessed, a chain of events began to unfold. It started with a single truth. A truth about you. Not a rumor. Not a misunderstanding. A truth so unexpected that it reached the heart of the person connected to your destiny. And when they finally heard it, something inside them broke in complete silence. Do not rush away from these words. Stay with me. What happened next changed everything in ways neither of you could have imagined. You have often wondered why certain doors seem to close without explanation. You questioned why some days felt strangely heavy while other days carried an unexplainable peace. What you could not see was that heaven was arranging moments that would one day intersect with your future. Every delay, every unanswered question, every lonely night was becoming part of a much greater design than your human eyes could recognize. There was someone who believed they understood your story. They thought they knew your heart. They convinced themselves they had already figured out who you were. Yet the image they carried was incomplete. They were looking at scattered pieces while heaven was preparing to reveal the entire picture. Then came the day everything shifted. Without warning, they encountered a truth they never expected to hear. It was not dramatic. It was not announced with loud voices. It arrived quietly, almost gently. Yet its impact echoed deeper than any storm. Do not skip this message now, because the next part is where the hidden pieces begin to fit together. When that truth reached them, memories they had buried suddenly returned. Words they once ignored began repeating inside their mind. Tiny moments that once seemed meaningless now carried enormous significance. They replayed conversations. They remembered expressions on your face. They reconsidered decisions they thought had been final. For the first time, certainty disappeared. Questions replaced confidence. Regret began replacing pride. My child, there are moments when truth becomes impossible to escape. No amount of distance can silence it. No distraction can erase it. Once heaven allows genuine understanding to enter a heart, everything changes. That is exactly what happened. The person connected to this message discovered something they never expected about you. They realized your silence was never weakness. They realized your patience was never indifference. They realized your kindness had never been manipulation. They realized your heart had carried more weight than anyone had imagined. The realization did not arrive all at once. It came like waves. Each wave stronger than the last. Each memory becoming impossible to ignore. Each new understanding revealing another layer they had completely overlooked. Pause for a moment. Feel the weight of that. Someone who once believed they understood you suddenly realized they had only seen a fraction of who you truly are. That realization became heavier with every passing hour. Stay until the end because the greatest revelation has not yet arrived. Many people assume tears only come from loss. But heaven knows something deeper. Sometimes tears come when truth finally reaches a guarded heart. Sometimes people break not because they have lost someone, but because they suddenly recognize what they almost lost. That hidden realization began growing inside them. It interrupted ordinary moments. It followed them into quiet evenings. It appeared when they tried to distract themselves. Even in laughter, something remained unfinished. Even surrounded by others, an emptiness quietly remained. My beloved child, there are conversations people never speak aloud. There are apologies that exist only inside the heart before they are ever spoken with the lips. There are moments when someone wishes they could return to yesterday simply to make one different decision. That unseen struggle has already begun. You have not witnessed it. You have not heard it. But heaven has. Every question. Every regret. Every silent realization. Nothing has escaped the sight of the one who watches over every heart. Do not leave now. Something even greater is about to be uncovered. There was a night unlike every other night. The world outside seemed ordinary. Nothing appeared different. Yet inside one heart, everything was changing. The truth they had learned about you refused to disappear. They remembered the times you chose compassion instead of anger. They remembered moments when you stayed calm while carrying burdens nobody recognized. They remembered opportunities when they could have stood beside you but instead chose distance. These memories did not accuse them. They awakened them. And awakening is often more powerful than judgment. That is why their heart became overwhelmed. Not because someone forced them to feel guilty. Because truth has its own voice. And once truth begins speaking, silence becomes impossible. My child, never underestimate the power of authenticity. The world often celebrates appearances. Heaven always sees reality. People may misunderstand your intentions for a season. They may overlook your sacrifices. They may never fully understand your quiet faithfulness. But there comes a moment when hidden things become visible. That moment has already begun moving toward you. Perhaps you have been asking why certain answers never arrived. Perhaps you have whispered prayers no one else knows about. Perhaps you wondered whether your unseen tears mattered. Listen carefully. Every sincere prayer has been heard. Every lonely moment has been counted. Every act of goodness performed without recognition has been remembered. Nothing has disappeared into emptiness. Nothing has been wasted. Stay with this message. Something extraordinary is still waiting ahead. As the days passed, the person connected to your story found themselves returning to one question again and again. What if I misunderstood everything? At first they pushed the thought away. Then it returned. Stronger. Clearer. More persistent. Eventually they stopped resisting it. Instead, they allowed themselves to look honestly at everything they once believed. That was not easy. Because genuine truth often requires genuine humility. And humility changes hearts in ways pride never can. There is a reason this message found you today. It is because hope is quietly growing where despair once lived. Not everything visible reflects what is happening beneath the surface. Seeds grow underground long before flowers appear above it. Likewise, transformation begins inside the heart long before anyone notices it from the outside. Remember this. Do not measure your story only by what you can currently see. There are chapters still being written. There are conversations yet to happen. There are understandings still unfolding. My beloved child, heaven is never hurried. Timing is part of wisdom. What feels delayed to you is often being carefully prepared beyond your sight. The person connected to this message reached a point where pretending became impossible. They could continue ignoring the truth. Or they could allow that truth to reshape everything they believed. That choice became heavier every single day. The more they remembered you, the more they realized your presence had left a deeper mark than they had ever admitted. The more they understood your heart, the more their own heart became restless. They searched for distractions. None lasted. They surrounded themselves with noise. Yet quiet thoughts continued returning. Because some truths are too powerful to be forgotten. Stay until the end. Do not leave this moment. Something greater than emotion is quietly unfolding. My child, understand this carefully. The message you are hearing is a fictional spiritual story created to inspire hope and reflection, yet the lesson within it is timeless. Truth has a way of reaching hearts, even when it seems delayed. Compassion leaves an imprint. Integrity is never invisible forever. And sincere love always carries a quiet strength that cannot be measured by immediate results. Sometimes people only recognize the value of another person after seeing them through the light of honesty instead of assumption. Sometimes understanding arrives later than expected. Sometimes healing begins with one unexpected realization. And sometimes heaven allows hearts to awaken only when they are finally ready to receive the truth. But what happened next? Even the angels watching over this story paused in silence. Because after that hidden breakdown, after the tears, after the long hours of reflection, after every memory returned, one unexpected message reached them. A message connected to you. A message they never imagined they would receive. The moment they read its first words, everything changed again. And the decision they made immediately afterward would alter the direction of both stories forever. But that moment has not yet been revealed. My beloved child, do not look away now. If you have remained here until this moment, it is because your heart was meant to hear what comes next. Stay until the end, because the story has reached the point where everything begins to change. Something remarkable is waiting to be revealed, and the next few moments will uncover what was hidden behind silence for far longer than anyone expected. When that unexpected message appeared before them, they stared at it without moving. It was only a few simple words, yet those words carried more weight than they could explain. They read it once. Then again. Then a third time. Each reading uncovered something they had completely overlooked before. The truth they had recently learned about you suddenly connected with this new message like two pieces of a puzzle finally finding each other. What had once seemed confusing now became painfully clear. Do not skip now. The greatest part of this story has not yet been uncovered. Their heartbeat became heavier, not because they were afraid, but because clarity had finally arrived. Every assumption they once carried began falling away. Every conclusion they had confidently believed started losing its strength. For the first time, they stopped asking what had happened. Instead, they asked themselves why they had failed to see it sooner. That single question followed them everywhere. It echoed through quiet mornings. It returned during ordinary conversations. It appeared whenever they looked at something that reminded them of you. There are moments, my child, when truth quietly rearranges the entire landscape of the heart. Nothing looks the same afterward. That is exactly what was happening. Stay here. Something extraordinary is still ahead. As they reflected, memories returned with astonishing detail. They remembered your calm words during difficult moments. They remembered your patience when circumstances could have easily pushed you toward frustration. They remembered the kindness you offered without expecting recognition. At the time, those moments seemed ordinary. Now they appeared priceless. What they once overlooked became impossible to ignore. Every memory carried new meaning. Every forgotten detail suddenly mattered. The more they remembered, the more they understood that your strength had never been loud. It had always been quiet. It had always been steady. It had always been genuine. That realization became almost overwhelming. My beloved child, the world often celebrates voices that shout the loudest, yet heaven treasures hearts that remain faithful even when nobody applauds them. Never believe that quiet goodness disappears unnoticed. It may remain unseen for a season. But truth has a remarkable way of bringing hidden light into open places. Stay until the end. Something much greater is still unfolding. The person connected to this story found themselves sitting alone one evening, unable to escape the thoughts surrounding your name. There was no dramatic scene. No audience. No conversation. Only silence. And inside that silence came one realization after another. What if I judged someone whose heart was trying to do what was right? What if I misunderstood kindness as weakness? What if I walked away from something heaven was gently asking me to value? Those questions did not leave. Instead, they grew stronger. They became impossible to ignore. For the first time in a long while, they allowed themselves to be completely honest. Honesty can be uncomfortable. But honesty also opens the door to healing. That evening became a turning point. Not because everything was suddenly fixed, but because the direction of their heart quietly changed. Do not leave now. The next revelation carries even greater meaning. While they reflected, something unexpected happened. A forgotten conversation returned to their memory. At first it seemed insignificant. Only a few ordinary words exchanged long ago. But now those words sounded completely different. They realized you had tried to communicate your heart in ways they never understood. You had left small signs. Small acts of care. Small moments of patience. Small choices filled with quiet grace. None of those things demanded attention. Yet together they formed a picture that could no longer be ignored. That picture revealed a truth far more beautiful than they ever imagined. My child, sometimes people only recognize the value of a gift after looking back instead of looking forward. Do not become discouraged if your kindness was once overlooked. The value of sincerity never disappears. It simply waits for the right moment to be recognized. Stay with this message. Something extraordinary is approaching. As the days continued, they found themselves changing in small but meaningful ways. They became more thoughtful, more patient, more willing to listen before reaching conclusions. The truth they had heard about you was doing more than changing their opinion. It was changing their character. That is one of the quiet miracles heaven delights in. Truth does not only reveal. Truth transforms. Every sincere realization carries the possibility of becoming a new beginning. That transformation had already begun. But there was still something they did not know. There remained one hidden piece. One final detail. One truth that heaven had not yet allowed them to discover. And without that missing piece, the story was still incomplete. Pause for just a moment. Can you feel how close everything has become? The answers are nearer than they appear. Yet timing still matters. My beloved child, there are moments when waiting protects something precious. If every answer arrived immediately, hearts would never grow. If every mystery disappeared instantly, faith would never deepen. Sometimes heaven allows anticipation because anticipation prepares the soul to receive what comes next. That preparation was happening now. Not only within them, but within you as well. You may not realize it yet. But your own heart has also been quietly changing through every season you have walked. Nothing has been wasted. Every lesson, every delay, every unanswered question. Each one has been shaping a future you cannot fully see yet. Stay until the end. Something remarkable is still waiting. Then, without expecting it, they encountered another person who spoke about you. This conversation was different. There were no exaggerations. No attempts to impress. Only simple honesty. The words they heard confirmed everything their heart had already begun believing. Piece after piece. The truth continued fitting together. There was no longer room for doubt. The image they once carried had completely disappeared. In its place stood a deeper understanding of who you truly were. They realized your story contained far more courage than they had ever recognized. Far more compassion. Far more resilience. Far more quiet faith. That realization filled them with profound humility. Sometimes the greatest changes happen inside a person without anyone else noticing. That invisible transformation had now reached its deepest point. And yet, heaven was not finished. Because something was already being arranged beyond their awareness. A moment neither of you expected. A meeting neither of you planned. A conversation that would begin in the simplest way imaginable. Yet leave both hearts forever changed. But before that moment could arrive, one final test remained. A choice. Not forced. Not pressured. A choice that could only come from sincerity. Would they allow pride to speak one last time? Or would they choose honesty, humility, and courage? Everything depended on that answer. And as the sun disappeared beyond the horizon that evening, they quietly reached for something they had not touched in a very long time. The moment their hand rested upon it, their eyes widened. Because what they discovered there carried your name. And the words they were about to read would become the beginning of the next chapter of this extraordinary story. But that chapter has not yet been revealed.